Hi, I'm Nirj Deva, Vice President of the Development Committee of the European Parliament and member of the ECR Group, spokesman on international development. I've just come back from the committee, having presented my report on private sector in development. We have identified that the meager amounts of money that we can raise from the taxpayer, increasingly resistance-driven taxpayer, to help international development to eliminate poverty and diseases around the world is shrinking, and we need funds to do this. So I want to partner the private sector. Estimates put the amount of money required in the coming years as $2.4 trillion, and our total aid budget is 60 or 80 billion. It doesn't make any sense. And so where do we get this money? And we need to partner the private sector, because it's in the interest of the private sector to have a well-educated workforce in their developing countries, a big consumer market emerging in the developing countries, high standards of living, which will increase global trade and global output. We estimate some 2 billion people coming into the market who will want the sort of consumer goods and food security and nutrients that you and I enjoy, and that needs to be provided. It cannot be provided now with the infrastructure we have. We have to create new infrastructure and new organizations for food, growing food, water security, infrastructure, energy, sustainable energy, green design, to protect the planet as we develop it. So it's a partnership that is long overdue between the public decision policy bodies like the European Parliament and the private sector.
Now, you've presented the report today. What's the next stage?
Well, it's gone to committee, it's at the committee stage now. It will then go to amendments, and then we'll have the committee report on the amendments. All my colleagues in the committee will put their particular angle or aspect forward in an amendment, and then we will then vote on these amendments, and it will go to plenary. I have already tabled my own amendment, calling for the creation of a European investment infrastructure bank, the biggest bank in the world, to create infrastructure projects, water projects, energy projects in Africa, Latin America, and parts of Africa, Saharan Africa, which will kickstart the EU economy, will give jobs to EU industry, which will create EU jobs and create what the Chinese are doing with their Asian Investment Bank.
And just finally, the UK's got a very vibrant private sector. Are there any particular examples where we've been leading the way in this field?
Yes, our regulatory regime is one of the most encouraging. The poorest countries in the world have the most difficult regulations. The countries that are growing fastest have easy and less regulation, minimum regulation. Not laissez-faire, but regulation that is necessary, but only necessary for the protection of the greater good. And those countries are prospering. The countries that have got overweening regulation are stuck. For example, there are African countries where it takes 600 different steps to open a bank account, and it takes 1 year to open a bank account. There are 2.8 billion people in the world who don't have bank accounts. They don't know what a bank is today.